The glow of the computer screen reflected in David Cruz's glasses. His hands hovered over the keyboard, trembling, not with age but with the weight of something heavier. He had typed the same words over and over again. Are you there? Please answer me. Each time, the blinking cursor mocked him with silence. 4 months, this screen had been his window to a world he thought he'd never know again. Romance, companionship, the warmth of a woman's attention. At 70 years old, he had believed his story was already written. A widower, a retiree, another quiet Floridian living out the rest of his years in the sunshine. But then she appeared. A profile picture of a woman smiling faintly, eyes that seemed to carry secrets, words that promised affection, loyalty, even love. Now there was nothing. He scrolled back through their conversations, pages and pages of endearments, promises, even plans. The words blurred together. His heart pounded as his eyes fell on the last message he'd sent her, the one that had gone unanswered. The money is on the way. Please be careful. I love you. David leaned back in his chair, dizzy. He had wired $47,000, nearly every dime of his savings, just 2 days ago. Money meant for his retirement, for medical bills, for the quiet dignity of old age. Gone. And still no reply. The realization hit him like a slow, spreading poison. She wasn't coming. She never existed. David covered his face with his hands. The shame burned deeper than the loss. He had been tricked, not just out of money, but out of the last fragile hope that someone, somewhere, might still love him. The hum of the air conditioner filled the silence of his small living room. Outside, palm trees swayed gently in the Florida evening breeze. Inside, David Cruz felt his world collapse into a void of betrayal. And yet, this was only the beginning of his story. David Cruz never thought he'd be the type of man to fall for an online romance. He wasn't naive, at least not in the way people would later whisper about. He had lived a long life, fought through grief and loneliness, and believed he knew how to tell right from wrong, truth from lies. But loneliness has a way of dulling the sharpest instincts. David was born in 1953, the son of Cuban immigrants who had fled Havana in search of a better life. His parents had built everything from nothing, working in restaurants, sewing clothes, taking night shifts just to afford their small home in Tampa. David learned early the value of hard work, of saving every dollar, of protecting what you earned. By the time he retired at 65, he had done everything right. 30 years at the same company, a pension, Social Security, and modest savings in the bank. He had been married 45 years to his high school sweetheart, Elena. She had been his compass, his anchor. When she passed away after a sudden illness, the world seemed to lose its color. The house in Tampa grew quieter with every passing year. David filled the silence with the TV, with long walks, with Sunday visits from his daughter who lived an hour away. But the nights were the worst.
Hello, David.
He would sit at the kitchen table, staring at the empty chair across from him, wishing, sometimes even whispering, for Elena to come back. That was when the first message arrived. It was late one evening in early spring.
I hope I'm not disturbing you.
David had joined a few online forums for retirees, places where people shared recipes, travel photos, and casual conversations. It felt safe. It felt innocent. The notification popped up. Hello, David. I hope I'm not disturbing you. The profile was of a woman named Mariana. Her photo was simple. Shoulder-length hair, a warm smile, a blouse with a floral pattern. She looked younger than him, maybe in her 50s, but not so young that it felt absurd. There was something about her expression, though, that tugged at him. Kind, approachable, genuine. David hesitated at first. He wasn't looking for romance, not really, but he was looking for connection. And so he replied. Their first conversation was light. Mariana told him she had once lived in Florida, though she was currently working overseas. She asked about his life, his family, his hobbies. David found himself typing more than he had spoken in weeks. Within days, their chats became a routine. Each morning, he woke to her messages. Each night, before going to bed, he waited for her good night. At first, it felt harmless, just two people talking. But slowly, a warmth began to return to his days, a spark he thought had been buried with Elena. Mariana's messages had a rhythm, always timed just right. If David sounded tired, she cheered him up. If he mentioned his wife, she listened with patience, even tenderness. "You must have loved her deeply," she once wrote. "Yes," David replied. "I still do. That tells me what kind of man you are. Not many men can love that way anymore." Compliments, reassurance, subtle validation. Mariana knew exactly what to say. Weeks turned into months.
Hello,
David began to believe in her stories, how she was working hard abroad, how she couldn't wait to return to the US, how she dreamed of starting a new chapter with someone loyal, someone like him. Their conversations shifted from casual to intimate. She began calling him my David, my love. She spoke about their future, traveling together, maybe buying a little house near the beach, enjoying the golden years side by side. For the first time since Elena's death, David let himself imagine a future that wasn't just loneliness. The first request came after nearly 3 months. By then, David trusted her. She messaged him one morning, sounding distressed. Her business deal had run into problems. Payments were delayed, her account was frozen, and she couldn't access her funds. She insisted she was embarrassed even mentioning it. David hesitated. He knew the warning signs. He had read about scams before. But Mariana never demanded. She downplayed it, saying she would figure it out, that she didn't want to drag him into her problems. That reluctance was the hook. David found himself offering help before she could even ask. "If it's temporary," he typed, "I could send you something to get by." She resisted at first, then reluctantly agreed. It began with a few $100s, then 1,000, then another crisis. Every time, Mariana's gratitude poured over him like sunlight. She told him he was saving her, that she couldn't wait to repay him when she returned, that she loved him more deeply with every sacrifice he made. David convinced himself it was only temporary. Just until she came home. Just until the money freed up. But deep down, he was paying not for her emergencies, but for the love she made him feel. The requests didn't stop. At first, David told himself they were temporary, a bridge until Mariana's funds cleared. But each time he thought the end was near, another obstacle appeared. Her messages grew longer, laced with desperation. "David, the customs office is holding my shipment. They say I need to pay a clearance fee or they won't release it. I'm so ashamed to ask you again. David, my passport has been stolen. I need money for a replacement or they won't let me travel. David, my bank account has been frozen. The officials are corrupt. Please, just one last time." Each story came with urgency. Each plea was wrapped in affection. And every time, David wired the money. The transfers weren't huge at first. $1, $200, $2,500. Manageable amounts, he thought. But over weeks they added up. His savings thinned, but he reassured himself.
Scammers
Once she
rarely ask
returned,
for
it would
large
all
sums at
balance out.
first. Small payments
Experts interviewed
escalate
by
as
Fox
trust
13
deepens.
would later explain how common this pattern is. Scammers rarely ask for large sums right away. Instead, they build a cycle, small amounts that escalate as trust deepens. Victims convince themselves each payment is the last, even as the amounts grow larger. David's daughter, Sophia, noticed something was off. One Sunday afternoon, she came by with groceries. She found her father distracted, his phone buzzing with constant notifications. He smiled faintly, then rushed to the other room to answer. "Who's that?" she asked. "Oh, just a friend," he replied too quickly. Sophia's instincts prickled. "What kind of friend?" David shrugged. "Someone I met online. She's nice. She listens." Sophia's face hardened. "Dad, please tell me you're not sending her money." He bristled. "It's not like that. She's real. You wouldn't understand." The conversation ended in silence, but the doubt lingered in her mind. Meanwhile, Mariana's affection grew more intense. She called David her savior, her future husband. She promised that once her problems were resolved, they would finally meet. David clung to those promises. Each transfer became less about solving her problems and more about protecting the dream he'd built with her. And then came the breaking point. It was a Tuesday morning when the message came. "David, this is life or death. I'm in danger. If I can't pay the officials here, they're threatening to arrest me. Please, my love, I need you now more than ever." The amount this time was staggering, $47,000. David stared at the screen. His breath caught. That was nearly everything he had left. His retirement, his medical fund, the cushion he'd worked for his entire life. He tried to resist. He typed, "That's too much. I can't." But Mariana replied with words that pierced his defenses. "If you love me, David, please, I'll pay you back the moment I'm free. Without this, I'll be trapped here forever. I thought you were my forever." David's heart twisted. He pictured her alone in some foreign place, frightened, betrayed by corrupt officials. He pictured her waiting, trusting him to save her. And he thought of himself, 70 years old, alone in a house filled with silence. This was his chance to matter again. With trembling hands, he wired the $47,000. As the transaction processed, he whispered to himself, "This is it. After this, everything will be fine. She'll come home." He never imagined those words would become the echo of his greatest mistake. The first day after the transfer, Mariana's messages came as usual. "Thank you, my love.
Sarah.
You saved
How
me.
are you doing
I'm making
today,
arrangements
sweetheart?"
now. Soon we'll be together." David smiled, relief washing over him. The sacrifice had been worth it. But by the second day, her messages slowed. Short replies. Vague promises. By the third day, nothing. David checked his phone obsessively. He refreshed the app, sent messages, even tried calling. No answer. Hours bled into a sleepless night. He sat in the glow of his computer, rereading her old words, her promises of love, of a life together. He typed frantic messages. "Are you okay? Please just tell me you're safe. I sent everything. Where are you?" The silence screamed louder than words. On the fourth day, David's chest ached with panic. He realized the truth he had been denying. He had been conned.
Just the
The
money.
money was gone. The woman he loved had never
It was
existed.
my dignity.
And yet, the part that hurt most wasn't the money.
My
It was the hollow
trust.
ache of betrayal. He hadn't just lost his savings. He had lost the last fragile hope that someone might love him again. When Fox 13 later interviewed David Cruz, he spoke through tears. It wasn't just the money. It was my dignity, my trust. I thought I was too smart for something like this. But loneliness blinds you. David sat alone in his living room, the Florida sun streaming through the blinds. His world had collapsed into silence. It was the silence of an empty phone, the silence of an empty bank account, the silence of a man who realized he had been alone all along. David's daughter was the first person he told. It was a humid Sunday morning when Sophia came by with her kids. She found her father sitting at the kitchen table, papers scattered everywhere, bank statements, wire transfer receipts, notes scribbled in shaky handwriting. Her heart sank as she looked at the numbers. "Dad, what is all this?" David's voice cracked. "She's gone, Sophia. She took everything. $47,000. For a long moment, silence filled the room. Sophia's eyes widened, her face turning pale. Then anger flared. "Dad, no. Please tell me you didn't." He nodded, shame washing over him like a tide. "I thought she loved me," he whispered. I thought I wasn't alone anymore." Sophia sank into the chair across from him, holding her father's trembling hands. "You're not alone, Dad. You have us. But we need to call the police. Right now." The officers listened patiently, though their expressions carried the weight of familiarity. Romance scams had become a plague, especially in Florida. They told David they would file a report, but the chances of recovering the money were slim. The scammers operated from overseas, shielded by fake identities, encrypted apps, and webs of deception too tangled to unwind. David's stomach churned. He had spent his life believing the system protected people like him. Now the system seemed powerless. According to the Federal Trade Commission, romance scams cost Americans nearly $1.3 billion in 2022 alone, with older adults disproportionately targeted.
About what
The criminals
happened?
exploit not just bank accounts but emotions, turning loneliness into leverage. When Fox 13 reached out, David hesitated. Speaking publicly meant reliving his humiliation. But something inside him stirred, a determination that if he couldn't get his money back, maybe he could prevent someone else from losing theirs. And so he agreed. The cameras rolled in his small Tampa living room. David sat in a worn armchair, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. His voice shook as he spoke. "I lost $47,000, he confessed. But more than that, I lost my trust. I thought I was too smart, too careful. But when someone talks to you every day, tells you they love you, tells you you're the only one, you believe them. You want to believe them." The interview aired that night, framed as a cautionary tale. David's face filled the screen, his eyes red with unshed tears. Viewers across Florida watched in silence. Some shook their heads, muttering, "How could he fall for that?" Others felt a pang of recognition, the quiet ache of loneliness that could have been theirs too. David's phone buzzed with messages afterward. Some were cruel, mocking him for being gullible. But others were filled with gratitude. "Thank you for speaking up. My mother almost fell for the same thing. I thought I was alone. I lost money too. You're brave for sharing." For the first time in months, David felt something close to purpose. His pain had become a warning. His shame had become a shield for others. Yet the financial aftermath was crushing. David's savings were gone. He cut back on everything: cable, outings, even groceries. Pride kept him from asking Sophia for too much help, though she offered. Each time he logged into his bank account, the balance mocked him. A lifetime of work erased in weeks. But the deeper wound wasn't financial. It was emotional. He missed Mariana. Not the scammer, not the thief, but the illusion. The version of her he had come to love. The messages, the good mornings, the dreams of a future. He missed the way she made him feel less invisible. That absence was a wound no bank could restore. Months later, David stood before a small community group at a local library. A flyer had gone out, romance scams, how to protect yourself. The room was filled with retirees, widows, single men and women who carried the same quiet loneliness he once did. David cleared his throat. His voice trembled, but he spoke anyway. I thought I was safe. I thought I was smart. But scammers don't just steal your money, they steal your heart first. They learn what you're missing and they fill that void until you can't see the truth anymore. That's what happened to me. $47,000 gone. But worse than that, I almost lost myself. He paused, scanning the faces in the room. Some nodded, some wiped tears. If it can happen to me, he said softly, it can happen to any of you. Don't let loneliness blind you. Don't let sweet words make you ignore red flags. And if you're already caught in something like this, please talk to someone before it's too late. Applause rose, gentle but sincere. David stepped back, heart pounding. For the first time, he felt that maybe Elena would have been proud, not of his mistake, but of his courage to turn it into a lesson. The Florida sun spilled across the kitchen table. David sat with his morning coffee, staring at the empty chair across from him. It had been nearly a year since Mariana's last message. The sting of betrayal had dulled, though it never vanished. Sometimes he still caught himself glancing at his phone, half expecting a message that would never come. But the silence no longer defined him. Instead, he filled his days with family, community talks, and small joys. A walk by the bay, a book on the porch, a phone call with an old friend. He knew the loneliness would always linger. That was the curse of losing someone you truly loved. But he also knew the danger of letting that loneliness become a weapon in someone else's hands. As he watched couples stroll past the cafe window one afternoon, he whispered to himself, love is still possible. But it has to be real. The empty chair across from him remained just that, empty. But this time David didn't fill it with illusions. Instead, he carried his story, hoping it might keep someone else from facing the same silence. If you were in David's shoes, lonely and searching for connection, do you believe you would have seen the red flags? Do you think David was simply too trusting, or do scammers prey on vulnerabilities we all share? Share in the comment sections.